Hey there, it's Elysha. I am super excited because I have a special guest today on the blog. Her name is Katie Emery, and she has her own blog, and her blog is fantastic. It's called Katie Goes Platinum, and this is the place to be if you are thinking of transitioning your hair, or maybe you already have transitioned your hair. And what I mean by transition is that you've gone gray, right? You've let your hair go all natural. So Katie is an amazing person. I am so excited. We actually hung out in person. So Katie, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so fun getting to know you. I'll start at the beginning. In 2018, I was about to turn 50. Maybe I was 50 and about to turn 51. Well, whatever it was. And I had been thinking about going gray for years, but I was worried about doing it because I was very invested in my identity as a dark-haired, green-eyed woman, and I grew up in a town of almost all blonde people. So having that brunette hair was like my own unique trait. And so I really was sad to let it go, but I was so sick of dyeing it. I mean, it was like really, if I had dyed it as often as I should have to keep the roots from showing, it would have been every 2 weeks. And that's how fast the grays were coming in. My hair grows super fast, and my gray is dye resistant. And as I got older, I was realizing that the chemicals were starting to cause some issues for me. Like my scalp would burn, it would itch uncontrollably. It was expensive and time consuming, and I just got sick of the whole thing. And so one night in April of 2018, I said, I'm done, and I haven't looked back. and so I started a blog because I'd always been interested in blogging, but I could never find a topic I wanted to blog about. But I became obsessed with gray hair, and I found that I couldn't find a lot of the info I wanted online. So I thought, well, I'll create my own blog and show other women this is fun and not a scary thing to do.
So when you started your blog, were you thinking about going gray? Like you said, you were obsessed with gray hair. So you started your blog. Were you already gray at that time?
Yeah, I didn't even, well, I only just started my last dye was, the last dye I did was February. I remember because it was right before my anniversary. So it was February 22nd of 2018. And by April, I just kept looking at that dye bottle, because I sometimes would alternate doing it at home or at the salon. And I kept putting off both kinds of dye. I just didn't want to do it. So in April is when I ditched the dye, and I started the blog in July.
Okay. So what made you finally decide to ditch the dye? What was it? Because it was a decision, because you went from February to April, and I'm sure at that point your grays were already starting to fully come in. So how did you decide that now is the time and this is what I want to do?
I guess just the fact that I was dreading dyeing my hair so much that I started to think, well, why am I dreading this so much? Why am I putting this off? Everybody dyes their hair. It's not a big deal. And I would sit in my car with that root powder. If I went out to lunch or whatever with somebody, I would, cover my roots. And they had gotten pretty long till about, here. But I just found myself, I just couldn't bear to do it. And so that's why I stopped, and I didn't bother researching it or whatever beforehand, which is what I usually do. But I just got to the point where I just didn't want to do it anymore. And when I decided that, I felt like this huge relief. And I was up almost all night just feeling like, wow, I didn't know how much it was affecting me. To some people that might sound crazy, but if you've been dyeing your hair for over 25 years and mainly for gray coverage, it just was such a chore, and I just was so sick of it. And it got me thinking about other things like, well, my feelings about aging, like who am I trying to fool? I'm almost 50, or I'm just turning 50, and I don't look like I did at 22, and so why am I really did feel like, for me, not everybody that does this for that reason, I was trying to hide that I was getting older. And so, I felt just this huge wave of relief to stop trying to be somebody else or who I used to be. And now I can see who I am now. That was the big feeling I had.
Yes, I love that so much, because you had mentioned the identity of the dark-haired woman with the green eyes who you were for so long, and it was trying to hold on to that identity as opposed to opening up and discovering what the next role or the next identity would be.
Yeah, I loved it for that reason. And I had a reader who wrote to me, she said that going gray helped her pull herself into the present. And I loved that because that's how I feel too. Like I kept trying to recreate who I used to be. And then it gave me, like, going gray was just the first step in figuring out who I am now. You know, it's been, and a lot of women say that going gray was transformative on many levels, not just for their hair.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really fascinating about it is that it was the first step. So you decided to ditch the dye, and I love that because I think your tagline is what is your tagline? It's helping women ditch the dye. Tell us your tagline.
I can't remember my tagline.
Wait, I'm gonna find it.
It's like helping women ditch the dye joyfully since 2018 or something.
Helping women confidently ditch the dye and rock their natural gray hair at every stage and any age.
Yeah, I did that because, you know, some women, I mean, I was probably 50% gray or more by 25, maybe more. And I've met women who started going gray at 5 years old, 10 years old. So this whole idea that only old people go gray is crazy. The only reason we think that is because for decades, women have been dyeing their hair and they don't stop until they're in their 80s or 90s, sometimes not even then. So but some people, especially Caucasians, tend to gray very early, you know, and so it's kind of a crazy idea that we've been fed that it's only for the super elderly. I mean, it is true that your hair might get grayer as you get older, but a lot of people have gray hair at a young age.
And now gray hair is trendy and fashionable, and you will see younger women with platinum hair or gray hair because it's a look. I don't know if they were going gray early. I never really asked, but I've definitely seen a lot of younger women who have full on gray hair. So I'm curious for you, what was the hardest part? I mean, I can hear that deciding to even do this was very challenging, but once you were already past April, what was the, and how long did it take you to get to where you're at now?
Well, you know, because my hair is so gray, I was able to kind of track the progress. And I guess the average person's hair grows about 1/2 inch a month, but I figured out pretty quickly because I could see it. Mine grows about 3/4 inch a month, so it grows quickly. But even saying that, I wanted to grow at shoulder length. So to grow it to shoulder length took 2.5 years. But if you were happy to grow your hair out to a pixie or bob, it's a lot shorter than that. I mean, it depends on how fast your hair grows and how long you want it to be, you know.
Right.
So obviously, if you wanted to go gray right away, you could buzz all your hair off and let the gray grow in. That's what a lot of women do. And if I was more confident about how I look with short hair, I might have done that. But I've never liked myself with short hair, so I didn't go that way. And also, to be honest, it was fun to shock people. I got a kick out of horrifying people walking around with half gray hair. So some people don't like it to do that, but for me, it was a blast. So I didn't really have too many struggles, except for one, which happens to brunettes, which is as your brunette dye fades, it takes on a really orangey, brassy tones. And by the time I was done, my ends were like Bozo the Clown orange, and nothing would help. Like for a little while, blue shampoo helped, but once it got to a certain point, nothing would help. And I just dealt with it by having it cut more and more, you know. But I think eventually I did get down to kind of a bob. But if I could do it again, I'd do what some women do now. They dye the ends like hot pink or blue or whatever. And that way you're still not touching that growth, but you're covering up the ugly orange ends.
Yeah, that is a great tip. So for people who are thinking about going gray, so cutting your hair really short is one way to make it really fast. And then another way is to dye the ends a fun, bright, bold color. I love that.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you saw this on my blog, but there's one way that everybody's talking about because it's a way I had never heard of till a couple of years ago. And my sister's doing it. It's called going gray in secret with the dye strip method. Have you heard about that?
Is that the part?
Yeah, it works best if you have hair that can part on one side and that's long enough to flip over. But you only dye like this much of your hair, like enough, and then you let all this grow out, and then this dyed hair kind of hangs down over your growing out gray hair. And then when you're ready to show the world you're gray, you just flip your part over and let that dyed strip grow out underneath. So,
yes. I seen someone, I was on a Zoom call with someone and we were talking about gray hair and she showed me she's doing that exactly. And she had very dark hair and she flipped it over and it was completely gray. So I know someone who is doing that. So that's really cool. So, okay. So it sounds like for you then, it wasn't really that hard. Like you were having fun shocking people and being like, my hair is half gray and half dark. Like for you, that was entertaining.
It was fun. I really never had a big problem with it, except the first few weeks were a little hard because, it was such a stark contrast. And, this is so silly, but I had dyed, like I told you, sometimes I go to the salon to dye my hair, and then maybe just to make it not be so expensive, the next month I might touch up the roots with home dye. Then the next month go back to the salon. And so when my hair grew out, it grew out in stripes. It was kind of crazy because it was like a science project, because you could see the salon dye is much better than home dye. So the salon dye really hung on. It was not fading, but the home dye was. So it was like faded dark. It was kind of funny. So once I got over being self-conscious about that, which only took a couple of weeks, then I thought it was hilarious and enjoyed it. So.
Right. So, okay. So let's talk about this new identity as a silver hair sister. I know you have a Facebook. What's your Silver Revolution is
Yeah,
what
Silver Revolution.
that's what the Facebook group is called. But I've heard this phrase, the silver haired sister. So tell me a little bit about like what this new identity, what this new role is for you. How does it feel compared to being, the brunette with the green eyes?
I think in a weird way, I have kind of gone back to who I used to be years ago, but not the way I look, but in terms of how I feel. Like I feel more rebellious. Like I think that's in my nature. I'm not super conventional, but as you get older and you work in a corporate field, you tend to try to fit in or whatever. And once I came to work every day with half gray hair for 2 years, this is before the pandemic, I had to get over worrying about looking conventional at work. And so I started to just have more fun and kind of rediscover who I am. So I feel freer and more creative and artistic than I did for a long time. And that's who I am, but it kind of got subsumed by work and kids and everything. So that's how I feel now. And the Silver Sisterhood, which is what they call it, of women who've gone gray, like it's a big online community. And I've met some of these women in real life and they all feel the same way. Like, I don't know, it is transformative. It's fun. So.
Wow. Okay. So this idea of letting your hair go natural, go gray as an act of rebellion, I am feeling you on this because it is going against what people have done and what a lot of people are doing. So this idea that it is rebellious to let your hair be in its natural state, and the fact that this is really tapping into who you were as a person before motherhood, job, and all that stuff kind of weighed you down. I think that is really beautiful. And the fact that it feels freeing. I mean, first of all, you're not ball and chain to the hair dye anymore.
Right.
So what other benefits, like what else have you noticed, since you've embraced this about yourself?
Well, one thing is I was losing a lot of hair over the years. My hair had gotten really thin and I thought it was menopause. So I just chalked it up to menopause. But then literally my landlord got mad at us because we kept clogging our shower, drain, and we'd have to have the plumber come in, and we put hair traps in. It was gross. And it was all me, and then once I stopped dyeing my hair stopped falling out. And that's when I realized, I think a lot of it was the dye, and my hair is so thick now. It's shiny, but I don't have to use shine products. I used to have to use a lot of shine products to make it have any depth or shine. It's smoother. I mean, the whole thing is, I feel healthier. My hair feels healthier. Yeah, I just love it. So, and since I was a kid, I have had to use blow dryers to get any frizz out of my hair, because I know unwanted frizz is my issue. Some people like frizz, but for me, it doesn't feel like me. It doesn't look good on my hair. And so since I went gray, I don't have that anymore. It's crazy. So, and that's not what I've been told. So not everybody will have that effect. You have to look back to before your hormones started kicking in with puberty. So like if you can look back to yourself as a child and how your hair was, that's kind of how you can predict what your hair will be like gray. So if you had coarse and frizzy hair as a child, your gray hair is probably going to be that way. But in my case, it wasn't. So I've gotten it back and it feels so much better.
And I imagine, like you said, everyone's experience is unique. Like you have a gorgeous head of silver hair, whereas tell me, I mean, what are some other, the way that it looks for other people? Do you notice that some people just have it in patches, or how do you see it showing up differently?
Yeah, some people aren't always happy with the way it looks. The big thing that I always tell people is you can't predict how it's going to look until every bit of dye was cut off. So I still had a little dye left on my hair after 2 years, which I didn't think was dye. I thought it was just my natural color. But when it got cut off, that's when I realized that's what it was. And it changed the look of my hair completely, because the gray hair is basically translucent hair, and it's taking on the colors around it. So if you've got a lot of black hair and just a few gray strands, that's how you get that salt and pepper look, right? But the less color in the rest of your hair, that's how you end up with white hair, there's no color. And so if you've got half brown, half blonde, half red or whatever coming in, it's going to affect how your color looks. And you might think you're going to end up with an ugly shade of gray, but you won't really know till the end. Now, unfortunately, some people get to the end and they still don't like it. There are some things you can do with your hairdresser. If you're not averse to using dye, you can get low lights put in to kind of give some depth to your hair if you don't like the fact it's too white. So I cover a lot of this in some of my books, but yeah, some people aren't happy with the way it grows out. It's just one of those things, just like anything, some of us don't like our noses or whatever. It's just how it goes.
Yeah. Well, it's a risk. At the end of the day, it is a risk, as most really great rewards are. They're a risk. You don't know exactly what you're going to get. But what I'm hearing from you is you really stepped into this new identity, and it brought so many benefits for you, and to feel free and to fully own and accept who you are. That sounds like a huge reward. So you mentioned that you have a book. It's called Every Which Way to Gray, and it's everything you need to know about transitioning to silver hair. So tell me, who is this book for? Who did you write it for?
And this book is for people who either haven't gone gray yet or are just thinking about it, or if they've already started, but maybe they're not sure about the process that they're using. And so what I do is I think the most important thing when you're going gray is to figure out who you are as a person before you do it, because it's a lot of work. There's not really an easy way to go gray except to shave all your hair off. And that's not a step that everybody wants to do. So I lay out all the ways to go gray. And I also have you ask yourself questions about, what kind of person am I? Am I patient or impatient? Like, can I sit through a 2.5-year transition waiting for my hair to grow out? Or do I want it to be 3 months, 6 months, overnight? I asked them about, are you willing to put more chemicals on your head? Because some of us, once we decided we were done with dyeing, we just couldn't bear the thought of pouring those chemicals on our head anymore. But other people are okay with it for a short time until they can be done with going gray, So I asked them a lot of questions, because if you don't know your temperament or your pocketbook, like how much money are you willing to spend? You can spend a lot of money to have a salon help you. And I tell you also some of the pitfalls and pros of going gray at the salon. So there's a lot to think about. I mean, for me, it was kind of easy because I just knew I liked my hair long, and I knew I didn't want any more chemicals. So it wasn't really a hard decision. But for some people, that's not an easy decision. So I lay it all out, give you all the options, and help you try to figure out which way to go gray is best for you.
I love it so much. Okay, so I am going to put the link to buy Katie's book. I'm going to put that below. Definitely check out her blog. I'm going to let you share the best places for people to find you.
Okay, well, on my blog, there's a Start Here page, and that's a great way to get started. I give you links to my Facebook group and my Pinterest, where I have like lots of gray hair inspiration pictures. I have a YouTube channel. I have Instagram, which I've been a little lazy about going on lately, mainly because I still am working from home, and the idea of getting dressed up and taking pictures of myself and putting makeup on, I sit around most days in a t-shirt and shorts and no makeup. So, but I still do post there. And but the blog is really the best way to find me. I've got everything there, and I have a newsletter that goes out to about 3,000 women, and it's highly engaged. I have a great open rate because people like the newsletter. I mean, I write to them about how to take care of their hair. I give them some secret tips that aren't on the blog, and special offers on my books and products and things like that. And then I have an Amazon shop for gray hair needs. So
okay, so definitely go to the blog. It sounds like that is where all of the resources live. So I'm going to put the link below, but just say the link right now.
It's katiegoesplatinum.com.
Okay, perfect. All right, Katie, it was so good to see you. And thank you so much for coming here to share your story. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. It was so fun.
Okay, I'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.